Saw dudes, it's been a while since I picked up Rhino Prime. Because I already released a dedicated build video, card at the top, I wanted to revise him a little bit and bring him to level cap. While much of the build stayed the same, the weapons and overall approach were altered slightly. The new mods that came with the updates helped elevate the weapon and performance, which was great. However, because of the recent enemy armor and health changes, the run was a bit more involved than I expected. Despite that, it went well and should provide some insight for many of you. Let's get started. The Rhino Prime build shown is very similar to the one shown in my other videos and focuses on being self-sufficient while also buffing teammates. The aura is growing power for extra ability strength. This can be swapped for any other aura of your choice, assuming you want to use an aura forma. Cutting Drift increases range for Roar and Stomp, while also increasing slide distance. Prime Flow increases energy reserves, and Prime Continuity increases ability duration. Transient Fortitude, Blind Rage, and Umbral Intensify all increase ability strength, which helps increase the buff from Roar and Nourish, massively increasing outgoing weapon damage. Archon Stretch increases ability range, allowing us to more easily share Nourish and Roar with allies. Energy Nexus provides us with a constant flow of energy and pairs extremely well with Nourish. Reinforcing Stomp gives us the ability to regen 4% of our Iron Skin for each enemy hit, providing us another layer of survivability. I chose Nourish as the subsumed ability because Rhino is generally a buffer/weapons platform. Having Nourish and Roar on one frame means I don't need to mod for viral on weapons nor equip a Bane mod. This increases weapon modding flexibility, allowing us to focus on other elements entirely or raise critical chance or critical damage. The extra energy provided by Nourish is a cherry on top. The arcanes I chose to run were Arcane Avenger and Molt Augmented. Arcane Avenger provides an occasional 45% crit chance buff for all weapons upon being hit. This applies even when Iron Skin is active, making it a no-brainer for crit-based weapons. Molt Augmented further increases ability strength, though I would argue that it should be swapped out for a weapon-specific arcane. You will have diminishing returns on ability strength, so I just trying out Arcane Precision or Arcane Rage, depending on your weapon choice. The Archon Shards I used for this level cap run were 2 Tauforged Emerald Shards, 2 Tauforged Crimson Shards, and 1 Tauforged Amber Shard. The 2 Tauforged Emerald Shards were attuned for increasing corrosive stacks for full stripping enemies of their armor. This was not utilized much in the run, so I would recommend swapping one of them for another shard of your choice. The 2 Crimsons were attuned for ability duration, increasing the timer for Nourish, Roar, and Stomp. Finally, I had a mandatory casting speed Amber Shard for quality of life. My primary weapon this time around was the Face Melter Phantasma Prime. I went with a hybrid setup since Nourish and Roar provide plenty of damage buffing. The mods I used were Galvanized Savvy and Hell, Prime Ravage, Critical Deceleration, Shell Shock, Prime Charge Shell, Vigilante Armaments and Shotgun Elementalist, and Vigilante Supplies with Shotgun Vendetta as my arcane. Shotgun Vendetta works best with other weapons that can prime, but if you can aim for heads, go for Primary Deadhead, since Electric Procs double dip the 30% headshot bonus. Akarius Prime was the secondary I chose to use, which was a breath of fresh air. The mods used were Hornet Strike, Galvanized Diffusion, Creeping Bullseye, Prime Target Cracker, Lethal Torrent, Pistol Pestilence, Prime Convulsion, Prime Heated Charge, and Pistol Ammo Mutation with Cascadia Flare as the chosen arcane. This build is all about making the Akarius Prime hit as hard as possible with each shot. While it is weighted towards corrosive procs, that's not the main goal, it's more like a bonus. This weapon was capable of shredding Overguard, which is perfect for Phantasma Prime. And finally, the melee weapon I chose to use was Glaive Prime, which is the same as the last run. I used Gleaming Talon as my stance, though your stance choice won't matter in the slightest since we are yeeting our Glaive. Dispatch Overdrive increased movement speed on the heavy attack hits for faster rotations. The rest of the build focused on increasing heavy attack damage as much as possible. In particular, Galvanized Reflex is a must now. At max stacks, it brings the initial combo to 5 times, drastically increasing damage. If you can, try using Melee Duplicate, since it can double the slash procs inflicted by the heavy attack explosion. Next, we have the Panzer build, which has become a standard in my loadouts. For this run, you can use the mods shown. I would be sure to keep Tenacious Bond and Reinforced Bond in particular, since they increase crit damage and fire rate respectively. The mods you can switch out easily are Synth Deconstruct and Tech Assault. These 2 slots can be swapped for Vicious Bond, Mystic Bond, or Pounce if you would prefer. The Panzer Claw build remains the same as the Zaku Prime Showcase. Protector Posture takes care of the enemies up close and applies puncture procs to them, granting us a flat crit chance bonus on attacks. Shocking Claws drastically increases status chance and causes the claws to apply electric procs, granting us energy through Archon Stretch. Bite increases crit chance enough to give us a crit damage bonus via Tenacious Bond. The rest of the mods increase the damage that the Panzer does and primes them for attacks from our weapons. As usual in Void Cascade, the focus goal is Madurai. There's no way around it since Void Strike and Void Fuel make killing Thrax units so much easier. Phoenix Talons increases physical damage and operator damage by 30%, which is massive for endgame runs. Power Transfer increases operator crit damage and Warframe casting speed, which makes clearing Exilizers much easier. Contamination Wave makes Thrax wet tissue paper, allowing for easy one-shots with the right amp. Finally, Sling Strength increases ability strength by 40% upon Void Slinging twice back-to-back, which is nice for Roar and Nourish. The amp I used was the standard 147, or Certus Brace, Raplac Prism, and Fat Scaffold. This has been my go-to for months now, and I recommend it if you can withstand the reputation grind. I use Magus Cloud, Magus Lockdown, Eternal Eradicate, and Eternal Onslaught as my operator arcanes. Don't be like me, upgrade your arcanes. I did shortly after recording the footage. Now let's talk about the run. While the run went fairly well, the changes to enemy armor and health scaling were felt. For context, armor scaling got capped at 2700, but now enemies have increased health scaling. Essentially, this means that enemies at 2700 armor will have a damage reduction of 90%, but a metric shitload of health. This change made partial armor strip much more valuable, as it increases damage much more than it did before. You no longer need to fully strip armor to get better results. However, the health change made some weapon combos notably harder to use. Slash-based weapons take longer to kill or require much more help. Rhino, as already mentioned, is a tank weapons platform. This couldn't be any more true for this build since we are running Nourish in addition to Roar. These two abilities cater to slash damage, and yet slash is having a much harder time killing enemies due to the newly inflated health pools. Glaive Prime, even with the new mods and Nourish and Roar buffs, was having a few issues with killing enemies. The slash procs may bypass armor, but that won't matter if the enemy's health is so big. Glaive Prime was great against ads, but anything beyond that was a big ask. This is where Akarius Prime and Phantasma Prime come in. Akarius does great damage and applies corrosive, heat, and blast procs, essentially acting as a pseudo primer. It can destroy ads quickly and peels off overguard with a couple of shots. Because we are using it as a backup weapon, the small ammo pool is a non-issue. Phantasma Prime with the electric build melts enemies through status procs. Of course, this is massively buffed by Nourish and Roar, but it gets the job done. Roar double dips the status damage, making it much more reliable and causing it to kill faster than other weapons usually would. However, the slow time to kill is still felt. It's not uncommon to see that enemies, especially Thrax units, would take a 35 million damage electric proc tick. The health inflation is crazy. That's why I felt the need to bring a status monster. So why did I bring Phantasma over something like the Kuvanukor? Initially, I didn't. Kuvanukor is my first choice, so I tried running a setup with it, but the ammo issues on it made it impossible to run. I ran a pure heat build and buffed it with Rhino, only to find that it started falling off at level 5000. Maybe it's a skill issue, or maybe I'm washed up. In general, I still believe Rhino to be an amazing frame, especially with his versatility, ease of use, and ability to buff allies. However, he won't be as easy to play as he used to, since he heavily relies on weapons to kill. Your weapon choice, especially in level cap, will be incredibly important. Be sure to leverage weapons that have good status scaling, as Roar will make them DPS machines. If you need to, use a primer weapon to avoid status proc dilution. You want to focus on getting the damaging procs as much as possible, like Toxin, Heat, Electricity, and Slash. Overall, if you are looking to go to level cap, need a tank/buffer, and can get a decent team, I can still recommend Rhino. Just make sure your arsenal is as cracked out as John Wick's. I hope this video helped. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thank you for watching and happy farming. Stay safe.
has an end.